Hello. It's 4:20. Let's get high. So yesterday, we were talking about Abraham, Abraham who lived 4,000 years ago, and how God had told the angels when they complained that maybe the first human being, Adam, might turn out to be flawed, that God reminded the angels that, I got Abraham in my pocket. If Adam doesn't make it, Abraham will make things right. And that's what happened. That Adam had particular flaws, and he was weak, wanted to blame the eating of the apple on his wife, Chava, who wanted to feed it to him so they would both die and he wouldn't take another wife. So they were both found to be somewhat lacking. One was weak and one was vengeful, and God said, go into the world and for 6,000 years pick up the sparks that have fallen from your inabilities, lackings. And that's what happened. But what happened was these things were compounded by, one bad thing makes another bad thing, until there are so many bad things. Just a second here. Until there's so many bad things happening that it seems it's irredeemable. And that's when God sent Abraham. It's interesting to see, because in the previous world, there were, let me see if I can remember. There was 974 generations. And meaning it was lacking, well, what I say, 900. I think it's 974 generations, lacking 26 years, 26 generations until 1,000. And so the way God set it up is they would be lacking 26 years. 26 is gematria of the Yud He Vav He, of God's name. And it was 26 generations until the Jewish people. It was 10 generations until Noah, and there was another 10 generations until Abraham, and then it was 6 generations until Moshe brought the Jewish people to Har Sinai to receive the Torah. So that's how the previous world in Tohu on Mars is connected to our world, particularly through Abraham. And in the beginning, Avram's name was Avram, which means high father. And Avram was so high that he couldn't have children. You have to be able to come down to have children, and he just didn't have the capacity. So God gave him a hey in his name, which made the gematria's name Avraham to be 248, corresponding to 248 limbs in the human body, and the 248 positive commandments from God. And and the Hey is the number 5, gematria 5, Hey, 5th letter. And this gave Abraham Shlita, a rulership over his 2 eyes, his 2 ears, and his penis. That nothing would happen with his ability to see, to hear, or to become sexually excited without his permission. And then he became a complete person and was able to have children. But there was a problem. And the problem was that Abraham, coming from the Tower of Babel, and here's the thing with the Tower of Babel, that God really appreciated that people can get together and do these great feats. I mean, just like today, you see, these big minds getting together and they can land something on Mars. And it's really, and they all celebrate because they all did it together. If one person messes up, the whole thing's messed up. So it's a great feat, and God had to give the human being that. It was a great feat to go up and build the Tower of Babel. Because of that, they would not die, which was both a blessing and a curse. Not to die seems to be a kind of blessing. Not sure it is, but it appears to be. When people rather live than die. But the curse in it, and there was a curse in it, is that they would not reincarnate, meaning they would not go on with the rest of humankind. And they would forever have to hang out in the Tower of Babel, and where they were trying to rule over the world, now they're salivating over the world. And sometimes they can make their way into the world and make a lot of trouble here and take power. And we don't exactly know who is who, except for that bitch McConnell, and he's certainly one of them. But, that guy should be put in jail just for being born. He's not a real human being. He's just pretending to be one. Anyways, so Abraham was this wonderful being, and he epitomized kindness, so much so that the angel of kindness that was not designed, but was assigned to our world, had nothing to do, complained to God, I got nothing to do, Avram's in the world, and he has filled the void of kindness to such a degree that Avram had to make upon him what we say every day in our prayers is Mogen Avraham. Made a shield around Avraham because he would just give everything. He had no sense of holding back whatsoever. And generally, it says in the Talmud that a man would get everything he owns if it wasn't for his woman who says, no, you can't give that away, man. Because men have the kind of feeling, I'll give it away, I'll just, get some more. And a woman has, no, we might need that sometime in the future. And, it's kind of the dynamic of men and women together. And Abraham was just such a kind human being and just wanted to give that he would give everything. But God had to shield him because of, people might take advantage of him. So it's called Mogen Avraham, shield of Avraham. And when he comes to the earth, he's 75 years old. And the Zohar makes a point of putting those numbers together and saying he was just turning bar mitzvah, 12, 13. The 75 is 12. And when he comes to the earth, he truly acts like a teenager. And it says that Lot, who was his nephew, I think, his brother's son, and I think it's worthy to take a look back for a minute. That how he got to have Lot, and it's interesting because Lot in Aramaic means cursed, and Avram actually had two brothers. He had Haran and he had Haran. And when Avram was making a lot of problems in the Tower of Babel, asking the wrong questions, like, are you really God? Can you make the sun come up or not come up? And Nimrod, who was the king, was getting annoyed. And so at one point, the king had enough. And he says, I'm going to throw you outside of the Tower of Babel into the fire of Mars. It's all red, and people could just die out there. And I guess even without a body, because they didn't have bodies at that point. After the Tower of Babel, their bodies were taken away. I've had to add that before. So that's why they would never die. And Abraham, he threw him out there, and the angels came and protected him, and he didn't die, so they had to take him back in. And so the two brothers were thinking to himself. So Haran, he said, they asked him, Nimrod asked him, okay, you're his brother, what do you think? So he says, I know where the power is, I'm with Nimrod. But Haran, he was kind of a schemer. And he said, if Abraham dies, I'm for Nimrod. If Abraham lives, I'm for Abraham. So he says, I'm for Abraham. So they put him outside and he dies. And that's how when Terach, Abraham's father, saw this, he says, we got to get out of here. And they would put a child to death in front of their father. It never happened before. And we got to leave this place. It's an evil place. And so when they left, actually, Haran, he remained there, but Haran died. So they took Lot, and when Lot, and they went to what's between the earth and Mars is the moon. They went and hung out in the moon for a few decades. And then God says to Abraham, the famous Lech Lecha, go to the world. Now is the time to go. And he took with him Lot. And because Lot was with him and wanted to see everything, they said they had to go around the entire world before Abram could come down to the land of Israel. Because Lot wanted to see everything. And we see the same thing by Abraham and Sarah. Once they get there and there's a famine, so instead of just dealing with the famine, there's a famine. Let's go down to Egypt. Let's see what Egypt's about. Because Israel was actually on a higher level. And Egypt is like on the lowest level, is considered the womb of the world. And so they went down there. So and Avram says to Sarah, "Wow, you're beautiful." And the commentaries say, "What? He's been married for all these years, never looked at his wife." But first of all, they had new bodies. They had real physical bodies, but they're both very modest. And he looks at her and says, well, you're beautiful and they're going to want you, so I'm going to put you in a box. And he knows that the Egyptians, you get to Egypt and they're going to say, what's in the box? And they'll open it up and they'll see Sarah. And they'll say, I'm her brother. I was trying to shield her. But once they see her and they say, well, this woman is meant for a king. So that's what happens. They take her to the king. But they, and the reason like Avram was sort of cavalier about this, as they just had constantly angels around them. And when the king took her, the Pharaoh, so they couldn't see the angels, but she could. And she'd say, hack, hack, hit them. And hit all the men there so they couldn't have sexual relations, some sort of scabs or something. And the king understood that this woman was the wife of a man. Calls Abraham in and says, why'd you say it's a brother? It's really your wife. I could have done an Avera like you really cared, And so he told Abraham, here's a bunch of things, money, just get out of town. Because, if you stay here, it's dangerous. And we don't want anything to happen to you because then we'll incur the wrath of God. And that's what happened. He went back. But they got to check it out. And they lived on the land for 10 years. And finally, Sarah had to admit, we're not doing very good with the sex thing. Now, she had picked up, while they were in Egypt, Hagar. I don't mean that in a dismissive way, but Hagar, who was a princess of Pharaoh, so when she saw the greatness of Sarah, said to her, I would rather be your slave than to be the princess of the Pharaoh. So that's how they got to know one another. And her and Hagar, they became lovers. And at one point where Sarah has just been 10 years and Avram needs to have children, and maybe it's not me, and said to her lover, Hagar, you go in with Abraham. And she did, and immediately she became impregnated. And this really helped Abraham to better understand how to use his body. And from this came Ishmael, and who is the father of the Arab people, and Yitzchak, the father of the Jewish people, and these are the Semitic people, the people that came, from Abraham and from Hagar. And later in Abraham's life, after Sarah has passed away, so he marries Keteret, who is Hagar, and has 6 more children, sends them off to the east, and they go and they take Iran, because Iran comes from the word like Ur, and Avram was known as an Urian, and the maker of languages. Like people who study language can trace them back to these small tribe of Urians. And they went off and they took Iran, and then they got all the way to India and made themselves Brahmins from Abraham. And this is how Abraham blessed the world. First of all, from having, creating these 3 languages, Arabic, Hebrew, and Sanskrit. And Arabic and Hebrew, these are prophetic languages. Sanskrit is not a prophetic language, as far as I know, but it is like a wisdom language. And it's made from components of Hebrew and Arabic, and that's how you get the Indo-European language. Because later in the second generation, when Yitzchak has twins, and one is Yaakov, who is the progenitor of the Jewish people, and the other is Esau, the progenitor of the Roman people. And therefore you have in the branch that Abraham is sprouting. These each one is a people, and eventually Esau became Rome, and Rome. The interesting thing about Esau and Rome, see, that Esau, the way he got Rome is that he had to leave his birthplace because he had sold his birthright to Yaakov. And so Yaakov got this special language, of Hebrew, but Esau had to go off and get his own birthright, had to find his own language in his own land, and that ended up being Latin. He took I forget what these guys are named, the Etruscans, out of Italy, and took Rome, became Rome. This is the beginning of Rome. And it's interesting that one of the officers in ancient Rome is called pontiff. And the pontiff is supposed to tell the people what to do to try to bridge between their world and Mars. Because Rome prays to Mars, and Esau has a real connection with Mars, one in that he was red when he was born, and he was already made. That's why they call him Esau, which means Asuya, already done. It says he came out with a head of hair and a beard and teeth, and he bit his mother on the way out, and because of that, he wasn't her favorite son. She was lined more with Yaakov, who was like a smooth, a normal kind of child. But, Yitzchak really dug Esau because they shared this severity. And in the end, Yitzchak, when he was old and didn't see well, wanted to bless his son Esau. But his mother heard, Yitzchak's wife's heard, Rivka, and went and got Yaakov and said, "Go in. Your father can't see right. I'm going to dress you up in your brother's clothing, and I'm going to give you a good meal to take to him, and go get the blessing." And that's what he does. And then when Esau comes back and says, "No, I got the meal, bless me," Yitzchak says, "I already gave the blessing. I gave it to Yaakov." And then Esau says, "Oh, he tricked me now twice." So his father says, "What do you mean twice?" Well, first, I sold, because he went and fought with Nimrod. The day that Avram died, he was fighting with Nimrod and got the famous coat that had been given to Avram, that had been given to Adam, so he could make his way through the solar system down to the earth. And this coat went off to Nimrod. He got it after Noah. Ham got it after Noah, and Nimrod got it from Ham. And the special thing with this coat, you put this coat on, and all the animals would bow down to you. So it encouraged people to think, "Oh, this guy's God." And they started running after him, and he said, "Follow me." And they followed him all the way to Mars and built the Tower of Babel. And Mars again has to do with Esau. So all these things are like very connected. And then when they start the Roman religion, what do they call the guy that's head of the pontiff, who makes up different things that people should do, really not based on anything, just based on whim, which is precisely what the church has done. The Roman church, they just made all these laws, and every time they make a law, the law goes against nature and makes all sorts of trouble in the world, which is good for Rome because they come from Mars, and Mars is about fighting. And that's what they like to do. They like to fight. Everything should be a competition, and the one who wins won. But that's not what life is about. Life is not about the one who wins, because the only thing to win is really the respect of the Creator. The Native Americans have a saying that the only thing we all hold in common is our loneliness. It's another way to say our individuality, our uniqueness, that each of us has a unique way to intercourse with the Creator, to have a conversation, to invite the Creator into our lives. That's really what God wants to be known and loved. And so each of us, you can look at what someone else does and you can't parrot it, because no one can do it the way the person did it. I mean, just like, great writers and stuff, like musicians, like, Bob Dylan, and everyone's doing his stuff. So I heard once that said, when one of the musicians asked Bob, said, "Hey, how'd you like my cover of you?" And Bob said in response, he said, "How'd you like mine?" In other words, how'd you like the original? And then everyone else covers it. See, but the one who originated it, so that's really powerful. And in Rome, what they originated was the lie, because since they didn't have an ancient tradition of their own, that they had to sort of manufacture one. And before they made religion, so they had the gods. And what were the Roman gods? The Roman gods were Greek gods that they shaved and gave them different names, and then started calling the planets by these names, And so the whole, the entire thing is just manufactured. In fact, our whole reality is manufactured. It's not real. It's not the one that God gave us, but rather the one that Rome likes because they can, they can win. And that's their whole trip, is winning. Like when you go to heaven, they're going to say, "What'd you do?" "I won." They're not interested. It's not a race. It's not a competition. but rather that kind of start in communism when things are tough, then you go to capitalism when things get better. But in the end, when everyone has enough, which we certainly have, that the next step is cooperation. And that's what we should be doing. And that's certainly the next step for the human being. Instead of competing with one another, that we will cooperate in sort of a whole one world plan, not something that, some economist or, a rich dude is going to run, but just to have like common things that we all understand. And the way to do that, it really is to rid ourselves of religion, because religion has made all the problems in this world. I mean, it's just terrible what religion has done. And so the father of all religion is the Catholic religion, Rome. And Rome insisted they don't have to pay any taxes. Until today, the Roman religion pays no taxes, and anyone else who wants to call themselves a religion, even though there's no such word in Hebrew, Arabic, or Sanskrit, will also get not have to pay taxes. So in this way, they got everyone to be religious, and the whole thing is one just crock of shit. I mean, it's just terrible. Even the people, like the Jewish people who came with truth, came with the Torah, have had to, make way for, the Christian Bible. And you got these rabbis who we call the Torah by the Christian name. The Old Testament is disgusting. Because when they translated the Torah, the first thing they did was change the title from teaching, which Torah means, to testament, which, in a teaching, you're supposed to ask questions. And in a testament, you don't ask any questions, like last will and testament. The guy's dead. There's nothing to ask. This is the last thing that he said. So that's what they want to make the Torah to be, that it's not a living thing, but rather a static thing that's really dead. And now you have these same dudes who are, Catholics, Christian, particularly Catholics on the Supreme Court, and particularly the Supreme cunt, who was like the worst of them all, the kind of Catholic like the famous anti-Semite Gibson, the guy who made the Passion movie. And these people are so strict about things that are so wrong that she had, by being on the Supreme Court, turned the Supreme Court into a real weapon against all women. By insisting, even before she became, when she went in to be, whatever they call it, that she made this statement that I believe that life begins at conception, which no one had ever done before. Whenever asked these questions, they always said, I have my own beliefs, whatever. It's not going to interrupt my judgment. And she's the opposite. This is going to inform her judgment. These lies from the Christian church. So this is really a time, in the United States where there needs to be a really big, change. Because these, a democracy and a court that's divided over ideology, where one says the Constitution is alive and growing and the other says it's dead. So you have the same thing, the religion keeps doing the same thing over and over again. And a good way to get rid of religion, first of all, is stop giving them money. And second of all, is make them pay for their taxes for all their property and all the businesses they own, and pay no taxes on it because their religion. What a bunch of crap. And the president, with just a signing of his name, can change all of that. So there you go about Rome and Abraham and the whole trip, and more about Rome tomorrow. I got some more things to say about Rome. Anyways, in the meantime, please check out my channel, dovidhouse.com. Buy a book, take a course, check me out. And tomorrow is Thursday, so this is tomorrow will be the last broadcast of the week. The last time to get high together. You can always get high by yourself. All right. See you later. Happy 420.